Okay, as you can see, this digitizer is pretty badly beaten up, and across here is an exposed area that we want to be really careful with. When we're heating up the digitizer with the hot air, one thing you never want to do is blast the hot air internally. The hot air will hit the LCD and will most likely cause damage to the LCD, making it to where impossible to use. You have to replace the liquid crystal display here. So as you can tell, we're going to go ahead and don our gloves, and this will help prevent us from getting cuts from the glass, and it also help us prevent from getting fingerprints onto the display. So what we're going to want to do is go ahead and heat up the glass to where it's about 100 to 120 degrees before we start opening it. So I'm going to heat the back side also. While you're heating the back side, you want to be careful you stay clear of any plastic, such as the mute, the volume, and this cellular model. You don't want to damage this upper. And the reason why I'm heating the back of the frame is this will help loosen up the adhesive from the digitizer to the frame, and the heat will remain inside the frame a lot longer than it will the glass. So I'm going to just heat this up just a little. Go ahead and turn it over and start working at this lower bottom right corner. As you can tell, I'm constantly keeping the heat moving. I'm not focusing on any one spot right now. You should start feeling the heat just through the gloves. Once it gets warm enough, we're going to take the iSesmo and insert it between the glass and the plastic bezel, just like so. So I just want to get up under there enough to start lifting that. I'm going to go ahead and apply a little more heat up this side as it's starting to cool down. The glass will cool down pretty quick once you remove heat. You see, I'm more focusing just along the right edge here. So once I get opening, I'm going to take a guitar pick. I'm going to insert it in there so that the glass doesn't re-stick to the frame, and start working up even more here. Now with one that's pretty badly damaged, you're going to want to take your time and pull it up just a little piece by little piece. You don't want to be in a rush, you don't want to be in a hurry. You don't want to take the risk of inserting the iSesmo too far and scratching your LCD. Once I created enough opening, you can keep working with the iSesmo up there, but I like to use the X-Acto with the number 17, especially in one that's this badly cracked. I'm going to give it a little more heat. As you can tell, I'm blowing the air away from the LCD, never toward it. So now I can take my tool here and start getting underneath the glass. Take your time and run it up. You see the glass starting to lift. Once I get a little more area, I'm going to insert another guitar pick just to prevent that from dropping again. And I'm going to take my nylon spudger here get underneath also. Help hold it up in this area. If you find that the glass is getting harder to remove, it's because it's cooling down. So you're going to want to gently reheat it some more. Keep running the razor up here. These aren't exactly the easiest things to remove, especially when they start breaking like this. And this one is just falling apart. Okay. Stick a few more guitar picks in there. Keep it from dropping. Then I'm going to start working on this upper edge. Now, since this is a cellular model, you're going to have two antennas to the right and left of the front-facing camera. One thing, those are attached to the glass with adhesive, so you want to be careful not to rip those. So I'll come in here, if this is a cellular model, till I feel the iSesmo here touch the antenna. In which case you're going to almost use a sawing action to remove the antennas from the glass. This one's getting cool again, so I'm going to have to give it a little more heat. And you see this one's just so badly broken up, it's just really coming apart in pieces. So here's my first antenna. And my second antenna is going to be in almost the same location. Same thing. I'm going to get underneath there, separate the glass from the antenna. And give it a little more heat. There we go. Should get that kind of cleared. So you can tell I'm partially lifting my digitizer here, just trying to keep it from falling back down. Now the next area we want to work is the bottom, right along here. Now here at the bottom, right in this location, just to the right of the home button, is the Wi-Fi antenna, which is also adhered to the glass, so we're going to have to separate that. So we're going to, once again, start heating up this area. So what I'm going to do is take my iSesmo just below and to the right of the home button, get it underneath there, and you'll feel it, and you want to force the iSesmo up against the glass so that you can get in there and use that same sawing action to separate the Wi-Fi antenna from the glass without damaging or tearing the Wi-Fi antenna, because if it gets damaged or torn, then you're going to have to replace it. Okay, so now I got that separated here, and I'm using my spudger to help me here on the edge, like that. And then I'm going to slowly open the digitizer up, sort of like a book. As you can tell, here is the Wi-Fi antenna, which is undamaged. Then up at the top here, we have the cellular antennas, which are also undamaged. Once I've got this enough, I'm going to go ahead and remove the LCD, and then pick up the remainder of the glass that's still sitting around the frame. Okay, as you can see, a lot of the little pieces of glass have landed on the LCD. So what I use is it's a very soft bristled brush to gently brush the glass off the LCD. So the last thing we want to do is scratch the LCD with a piece of glass. Now on this one here, the digitizer came off in such pieces that we didn't have to worry about the power flex cable, which is located up here. But that's one thing, when you're coming up along this side, just above the mute switch is the power cable, which can be very easily damaged. It's easy to replace, but you'd probably rather not. So when you're using the iSesmo tool over here, you just want to make sure that you kind of put it in and kind of take it to the side and peek in and try to locate that cable and prevent from tearing it. Now I'm going to use the Phillips screwdriver that was included in the kit, and I'm going to remove the 4 Phillips screws, one in each corner of the LCD, and set the screws on the small magnet that was included in your kit as well. Okay, now that I have the screws out, I want to lift the LCD up. So we're going to take the flat end of the spudger over here to the side and just gently lift the LCD up and out, just like that. Now the LCD is still connected to a cable on the underside of the left side. To get access to it, just go ahead and gently rotate the LCD over to expose the connection. Now the safe way of doing this is to separate the logic board from the battery. There's a single Phillips screw, you see right there, and I'm going to go ahead and remove that screw. And make sure that screw is put on the magnet also with the 4 LCD screws. Now to separate the battery from the logic board, you could take a guitar pick and modify it. And what I've did is I've made this little tool here that I just wedge in here and press in, and that separates the pins under the logic board from the battery, so we ensure there's no voltage at all going to it, because if somehow we accidentally power this device on by disconnecting or reconnecting the LCD, we could potentially blow the fuse that controls the backlight, or worse, make the device irreparable. So now I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the LCD. As you can see, the gold block that the cable comes to, it has a little arm that wraps around the connector. So I'm going to take, you can use your ESD spudger or a pair of tweezers, and you only want to go from the outside edge or corner. You never want to go from directly behind here. There's several surface mount components that can be easily damaged or knocked off. So I'm going to go ahead and pop the little arm up right there, grab the cable and push it outward, just like that. Now that my LCD is removed, I'm going to brush off any remaining glass that may have fallen gently. And you can either wrap it in a cling wrap, or the new digitizer comes inside of this anti-static bag. You can go ahead and slide the LCD inside this bag. And this is mainly just to prevent dust, dirt, fingerprints, and stuff from landing on the display. Because it may take you a couple of hours or a few days to do this repair. Okay, now that that's out, then we're going to go ahead and disconnect the digitizer. Now the digitizer has a whale tail looking connector that goes into the logic board, and the bottom of the logic board is held down with this little plate. But as you can tell, the digitizer connector on this side is almost flush against the plate. One of the safest ways to disconnect these without possibly damaging the door is to go ahead and remove the two screws and this plate right here. So let's go ahead and remove those two screws and set them on the magnet that was included in your kit. And I'll go ahead and grab the plate and lift it out and set it next to those two screws so that I know that those two screws belong to this plate and they don't get confused with any other ones. Now, taking the flat end of your nylon spudger, you're going to gently place this underneath the connector and just rock it up. You're not applying any force, you're not pushing inward, you're simply going to pop it up. See? Just like that. And if you look in the guide that was included in your kit, we kind of explain how this works as well here. You see, this is the normal closed position, and we're just popping that door up to about a 45-degree angle. So I'm going to do the second one. Same thing. Then I'm going to grab the digitizer cable and then slide it outward or upward toward the top of the iPad itself, just like that. And then I can remove the old digitizer altogether. Now with the digitizer off, we're going to go ahead and remove the plastic bezel that surrounds the frame of the iPad 2, which you can just get underneath an area here and it just lifts off. It's just held in with a little bit of double-sided adhesive. Now, a replacement bezel is included in your kit, and we recommend replacing this just because you're kind of prying and getting under there to replace that screen. You're going to have dents and marks on that bezel, and when you put it back together, it's going to give you that nice new look. Now, any other glass still attached on the outer edge, we want to go ahead and remove little pieces. I'm using the X-Acto knife with the number 17 blade here, and I'm just kind of picking off little pieces of glass that are still left behind, or large chunks as well. Just to make sure that I'm glass free. This way the new digitizer can attach just fine without any problems. Now you'll be noticing I'm not digging in anywhere. I'm just gently brushing any of the glass away. I'm going to check the rest of my frame, make sure there's no glass left on there, which I don't see any, which is good. Now I can begin removing the adhesive from the old digitizer that's still remaining inside the frame. And again, I'm still wearing my gloves. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this adhesive tape remover pad that was included in my kit, and we're going to go ahead and clean it up. Now what I'll do is these pads can get pretty wet, so I have a tissue here, and I'll show you. So when I pull this out, I'm just going to dab some of the excess fluid onto the tissue so that it's not dripping or falling inside. So I'm going to fold this cloth up nice and round, and I'm going to run it all over the frame, anywhere where there's adhesive. Now we're going to run in a pattern 360 degrees of the frame, and we're going to run around it twice. This way we make sure that every bit of area here is covered in the fluid that's on this pad. Now this is used for medical purposes, so there's, it shouldn't be anything harmful, no like harsh chemicals or anything like that. And again, I'm doing my second pass. Now I'm going to let that sit here for the next 2 to 3 minutes, give the fluid on the pad a chance to dig into the adhesive and start loosening it up. Okay, so this has been sitting for about the last 3 minutes. What I'm going to do is take the flat end of my nylon spudger, and I'm just going to kind of go around and push the adhesive around. As you see, it's coming off very easy, and just wiping it onto a tissue. If you get an area that's being a little stubborn, you can use the end of the iSesmo, and same thing. Comes up, wipe it off, or if you have the X-Acto with the number 17 blade, same thing. You just kind of push it up and around. Wipe it off onto a tissue or cloth or toilet paper, but whatever you wipe it onto, it should probably go in the garbage. See, I'm not using a lot of force, just enough to push that adhesive off. Just like so. And if you're using any kind of a razor blade, especially around the power flex cable here, you want to be cautious not to hit the cable because you'll slice right through it, and then you're going to have to replace that. It's going to, put you back on time. Make sure you're cognizant of your razor. You don't want it slipping. Whatever you use, you don't want to puncture the battery cells. I've seen it happen where people slip the razor, it cut the cell, and that cell immediately filled up, and it kind of looked like a big fat pillow there. But that's not something you want. There's gases in there that are very harmful to human lungs. So you want to take extreme caution around the batteries. So you just really want to take your time. Don't ever be in a hurry. You want to try to get as much of this adhesive off as you can without causing any damage to the logic board, the battery, or anything like that. Once you're satisfied that you have enough adhesive off, then you're going to go ahead and want to wipe the entire frame using the alcohol prep pads. you're given. Intent is to get any of the stuff from the adhesive pad off, and it also helps remove any adhesive that you may not have seen and help it slide around. The cleaner your surface is, the better your digitizer is going to rest. If you have any jagged edges around your iPad, especially in the corners, be very careful. It will easily cut your finger. And that's why I always tend to double up the pads and put them over, so in case there is a jagged edge, it'll tend to snag the cloth instead of dicing through my skin. Okay, now I've gone all the way around on one alcohol pad. I'm going to go ahead and use the second pad also. Give this a few minutes so that the alcohol evaporates. And then we're going to go ahead and do one final good cleanup. Now that it's nice and clean, we'll get it ready to attach a new bezel. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and prepare the plastic bezel. Included in your kit is a replacement bezel and the adhesive. Now the adhesive goes on the flat underside of the bezel, so if you look at it, you'll have a channel on one side and a complete flat edge on the other. Now, looking at it, we'll start here at the bottom. You have the cutout for the home button and the Wi-Fi cable, and then grab the adhesive that matches that, pull it off, and go ahead and line it up. And place it on the underside of the bezel. Try to keep your edge on the edge of the bezel as close as possible. If it overlaps, you're going to have a harder time putting the bezel back in. And then we'll run this counterclockwise. So the next one will be the long piece with no notch in it. Start from the corner, work your way down. And you're going to do this all the way around until all your bezel adhesive is in place. And we'll put this last piece on. You're going to notice that it's got the cutout right here. Okay, now that all the adhesive on, I'm going to just run and make sure it's all flattened against the underside of the bezel. Before I put it in, I'm going to inspect my frame. If there's any dents or dings, you're going to want to correct that. If you have a corner that's bent, you can find a socket that will fit this radius and kind of tap it out, or use a small flathead screwdriver to kind of bend it out. If there's a jagged edge, you're going to want to file it. And when you're filing, you always want to make sure that you file toward the outside so the shavings don't fall inside. Any small metal shavings can short out components inside the iPad. So this one's all good to go. I'm going to go ahead and peel off the backing of the adhesive on the bezel. We'll go ahead and insert this into the frame. So what you're going to do is you're going to notice this tall skinny area up at the top. You want to line up just above the audio jack. Make sure you put the dot into the dot in the frame. And you're going to do this for all four corners. And you're going to take your nylon spudger, the flat edge, and you're going to press the bezel into the frame. I like to make sure that I keep a thumb up on the corner here where the dot drops into the metal so that I get it right. Start running down, and then I'll put my finger down at the bottom so that it drops into place. You're going to notice that it's a little bit longer because once it actually drops in it'll drop in to the right size. You're going to run this all along every edge. Then run the spudger, and you're actually pushing outward while you're doing it to make sure it drops underneath that bezel. You are applying a little bit of pressure. Now on the cellular model, you're going to see this plastic up at the top. Don't put any force on here because this actually flexes, and you can end up cracking or breaking it. So just very light pressure on that top end. Once you're satisfied it's in, just give a good eyeball. Make sure that the bezel is not sitting above the corners or the ends. Okay, all looks good. Now that the bezel is in place, we're going to go ahead and start reassembling. So I put gloves back on because I'm going to have to handle the LCD once again. So the first thing you do is you're going to get your new digitizer and inspect it for any damage, fractures, cracks, or anything. Should be fine. Now you're going to see typically the flex cable is folded over to the front side. So you're going to want to unstick that from the glass. Be very gentle with this cable, it can tear pretty easily. So let's go ahead and remove this tape. And then fold the flex cable back over and turn it over. Now the first step we're going to do is we're going to reinsert the digitizer into the connections on the logic board. And the same thing with our guide is you look at the digitizer connector doors upward. So we're going to insert the cable and then close the door so that it's nice and flat, just as shown in the guide. So let's go ahead and insert this. I like to get it in, then just use the flat end of the spudger. Make sure it's in all the way. You'll see some white lines on here. These typically will line up with the edge or just a little inside, but I wouldn't be too concerned with it. You just want to make sure that they're going in till they stop. And just take your finger and close the FPCs just by running your finger across the top. The door will go down and lock the cable in place. Go ahead and remove the adhesive from the underside and attach it to the top of the shield here. Now once this is done, for the rest of this you want to try to keep the digitizer resting up on the frame. If it gets pulled down you could end up tearing this cable. So I'm going to take the flat end of my spudger and I'm going to very carefully fold the flex cable so it goes inside and under the frame, just like such, so to be nice and level. So if you're looking at it, you'll see it folds neatly inside and under the frame. And try to keep that up. Here, if you have an iPhone, you can slip your iPhone underneath this to help keep it level. That tends to help. Okay, so the next step is we're going to reinstall the plate we removed earlier down here at the bottom. So we're going to take the plate, set it into place. Then we're going to take the two screws that we removed earlier, insert and tighten. You don't want to over tighten these because it's made out of aluminum. You could actually strip them out. So now the plate is installed, as you can see here. Referring to this plate right there with the two screws. So next we're going to take our LCD Remember, we covered it in the blue bag that the digitizer had come in. And we're still wearing our gloves so we don't get fingerprints on there. We're going to go ahead and take the cable, lift the door back, and then we're going to slide it into place. Once it's in place, go ahead and take the latch here and close and lock it using only finger pressure. You don't need to use any tools. So we're going to rotate the display away, because remember we separated the battery, so we want to pull out the tool that we use to separate the battery, press that back down, and reinsert the Phillips screw removed. And again, you don't want to over tighten it. Since the frame is aluminum, you could strip it out. Once that's in and it's stopped, then go ahead and rotate the display and press it back into the frame like such. Then you're going to go ahead and install the 4 screws for the display that we removed earlier. Make sure the screws go in nice and tight. Don't force them. You don't want to cross thread it. You don't want to over tighten and strip out the aluminum. So you just go it down till it stops. Okay, so our next step is we're going to go ahead and dry fit and test it and make sure everything's going to function as it should before we permanently seal it up. So what we're going to do is just rotate the digitizer over, set it down as if it was installed. You're not pressing it. Go ahead and power it back on. You should get the Apple logo and then boot all the way up to the dashboard. Okay, now that the iPad is booted up, we're going to go ahead and align the bottom, make sure our home button works. So at the main dash, you just double tap the home button, your screen should jump. So we know that works. Make sure our volume up, volume down, mute, and power all work. So that tells us we did not damage the cable up here. And we want to test the magnet sensor if you have a smart cover. And again, you're going to check your Wi-Fi, make sure you got good signal. And you got to test your audio port as well with the headphones. Lastly, you're going to test the digitizer by grabbing an icon until they're all jiggly, and then grab it and move it over the entire coverage of the screen. Now, wearing gloves, you got to go a little slow. If the icon should drop, that could indicate a dead spot or a damaged cable. You also want to make sure that it goes across to the second page and then back again. And then drop your icon. Once you're satisfied everything is good, then we're going to go ahead and prepare this to close it up. So let's go ahead and power the device back down. Now that the iPad is powered back down, I'm going to go ahead and open this again. If you notice that I'm keeping the digitizer up on the frame and not letting it fall down, because you want this cable when it goes in to make sure it smoothly drops between the frame and the LCD. So we're going to go ahead and give the LCD a final cleaning. Any dust or dirt. I'm using a clean brush here. It's never be used for any other product, and I use it just for cleaning the LCD to kind of brush off any dust. If there's any fingerprints or anything on there, we recommend one of these devices by LensPen. This one's called a Sidekick. They come in different shapes and sizes, which we do sell these, but you could also find them at a lot of big box stores. It has invisible carbon that will help you remove any fingerprints, just like so. I'm just wiping it off. But once again, you want to make sure there's no dust, dirt, or glass, because if it gets caught under here, it's going to scratch your LCD up. So we're going to go ahead and remove all the adhesive surrounding the iPad digitizer itself. You have these little tabs, and go ahead and pull those off all the way around. When you get up in this upper area, you want to kind of make sure that the adhesive set nice and flush. If the adhesive starts pulling off, then just smooth it back down with the flat end of your nylon spudger. And you get down toward the cable, just give it a little tug and it'll slide right out. Then you're going to do the bottom edge as well. And give it a little tug and it'll slide out as well. You want to look at your cable and make sure it doesn't stick to the adhesive itself. On the inside of the digitizer, there's a clear protective layer that we're also going to have to remove. And it's put here just to prevent dust, dirt, fingerprints from getting on the inside. So as soon as you peel off this inner layer, you want to get it closed so that nothing settles on it. Now I'm going to give my LCD one last check. Make sure there's nothing resting there. Look at it from all angles. If there's any fingerprints or anything like that, you're going to definitely notice. So now I'm going to go ahead and remove this inner layer, which sometimes can be challenging. Once this is peeled off, make sure you do not touch the inside. Try not to cough or sneeze or anything, because any kind of droplets on there will show up. So go ahead and remove this, and then immediately rotate the digitizer up, again keeping it supported on the frame, and then touch and align the right side corners. Now on the flex cable here, the key here is you want this so that it drops between the LCD and the frame. So using the nylon spudger, you could kind of put it against there and then close it and slide the spudger out so the digitizer drops into place. Go ahead and check all the way around. Make sure the front camera lined into its area as well. Press this into place, running your finger over, and we're going to go ahead and power it on and do one final check. Make sure everything's good before we set it inside of the clamping system. Okay, so again, we're going to give this one final test. And we take the gloves off. Again, we're going to make sure the icon moves everywhere on the screen, that the icons don't drop. Make sure it goes to the second page and then back to the previous page. Make sure the home button works so that we know it's still aligned. Check your volume up, your volume down, your mute, power, and the smart cover sleep wake. Okay, so everything's good. We're going to go ahead and close this up. So we'll power it down. Now there's several ways of closing this. Here we use this iPad jig kit, which is a clamping system that presses the glass into the frame. It gives you a much stronger bond. Some other ways are to stack material on it. One thing you don't want to do is just lay it on a flat level surface and then put 5-10 pounds of weight on it, because all you're doing is putting the weight on the plastic bezel, which sits slightly above the glass. So what you want to do is you could take like a towel or a cloth, lay it down, set the iPad face down, and then stack about 10 pounds of books on evenly across the back. But one of the key things is you want to get the glass warm again. So you're going to take your hot air, you're going to heat it up to about 100 to 120 degrees, and what this does is it allows the adhesive to become gooey and grab the frame. So we've already heated this one up, and we're going to go ahead and set it in this press just like so. And now I'm going to let it sit for at least 4 hours. By the time it's cooled down, the glass will be again stuck to the frame. If when you take it out you notice the glass is lifting or didn't stick, that could be because you didn't remove enough of the adhesive, or you didn't remove the adhesive pad. Some other things that'll cause it, especially on this corners where the flex cable is, if it didn't drop between the LCD and the frame, it'll be curled up and it will act like a spring and just constantly push your screen up. So you have to handle those on a